Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I don't have a name for it yet, but I just wanted to make a video because I was struggling with something and I couldn't find any information or any videos on YouTube about my specific problem, so I just thought it would be a good thing to do, I guess. And my problem was, I've been trying, I'm here now, of course, lucky me, but I was trying to find a car company car rental company that would allow me to rent a car and take it through all the various Balkan countries that I wanted to travel to, like 9 or 10, starting from Croatia all the way down to Greece. So yeah, luckily I found a company and I'm coming to the end of the road trip, which has been absolutely fantastic. But I just wanted to share my insights from my research and the hours of tolling through and trawling through the different rental companies from all the 9 countries that I've been to tell you which one that I ended up landing on and the car I'm currently using. So we're going to split this into, I guess, 2 bits. The first thing is going to be about the car rental company and what you should know, and then the second thing can be what I think of this car, which is just, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but the main thing is there's certain things you should get in a car for the Balkans. I don't know if you can tell, but this road is very bumpy, and so the first thing is you should get a 4x4, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so I guess we'll go into part 1 now. So I guess the best place to start is where to start, and what I mean by that is what city and what country should you begin your road trip in and sort of collect your car from. So really the major factor for this is what countries do you actually want to visit in the Balkans region, and this will essentially lead your decision into where you should fly into or transport into, and where should you collect your car rental from. And that's of course because certain companies will have certain policies for where you can travel, and we'll get into that later. The second thing is, if you're money conscious, particular cities and particular countries in the Balkans will have different prices to transport into. I only know about flights, but I'm sure it's similar amongst other transport options. But for example, I went in January to Belgrade. It costs more than 300 Australian dollars, whereas to Sofia, which is where I ended up going, it only costs about 80 Australian dollars to fly into. So very big discrepancy, and it's something that's important to look at if you're tossing up between 2 different countries that offer the same options in terms of the countries you can travel to. The next thing I want to talk about is insurance, and it's sort of split up into 2 different types. You have your travel insurance, which is your personal insurance that you get for the whole time of your trip, and you have the car rental company's insurance that they offer themselves. So the first thing is your travel insurance. This really is a non-negotiable and a no-brainer. You should have it every time you travel, and any time you leave the country essentially. And so this, of course, will have certain levels, many different companies out there, not going to get into it, but make sure you read your policy document and make sure it sort of fits the requirements that you need it for. The second type of insurance is car insurance, the car insurance from the car rental company. And this will often be advertised in certain levels. They'll have a sort of no coverage level, maybe like a basic or medium level, and then like a super coverage level. The lowest level will mean you'll likely have to pay the full cost of the car's damages or repairs. The second, you'll have a large excess but a lower premium. And then the super coverage often will mean you don't pay a cent no matter what the damage is, but of course your premium is much higher, so you're paying more for the rental overall. The main thing with this is you need to make sure you marry up the 2 types of insurances to ensure that you're covered in the event of something happening. For example, my insurance covers me up to $4,000 in the event of anything, as long as I get the most comprehensive policy. So if I get the most expensive policy that the car rental company offers, then my travel insurance will cover me up to $4,000. So ultimately, the bottom line is here that you just need to make sure all bases are covered across the 2 sets of insurances, from the car rental to your travel insurance.
Yep.
So the next thing I want to talk about is costs, and this of course will be quite general, but your costs will range from about 10 Australian dollars a day to even up to 200 Australian dollars a day. Very much depends on what car rental company you go for, what insurance level you go for, what car you pick, etc., etc. It's not really something I can advise on, except for what I went for. And so what I have is a small 4x4. It was for 8 days, the rental period. It had the full cover, and it allowed me to travel to 9 countries, and so the whole Balkans region, and it costs 730 euros. So that translates to about 1,200 Australian dollars from memory. But that's everything included after that, so the full insurance, etc., etc. So if I dent the car or anything like that, it's an 85 euro administration fee on the Val Kar rental end, so from their side, but that's actually covered by my insurance, so I don't actually have to pay a cent. Again, very personal circumstances, but that's a good indication of how much you might be paying. So now I want to talk about the car rental company that I ended up sort of going with, and that's Val Kar, as I've sort of said before. And the main reason I went with them is because they allowed me to go to all the countries I wanted to for a reasonable price, and they were very sort of professional and helpful in terms of sorting out all the paperwork and stuff like that. So that was really important to me, that those sort of 3 criteria, and it ended up being 730 euros. So not awful for 8 or 9 days, but not on the cheap end. And that's because of the car we chose, as well as the amount of countries that we selected to go to, which I'll put on the screen. So ultimately, Val Kar has been fantastic. I couldn't recommend them more. They were extremely communicative in the lead up to arriving in Bulgaria. From there, once we arrived at the airport, they picked us up right from the front, and they took us to a nice little spot and explained how the car worked, asked us if we had any questions about it, and more importantly, they told us how the tolls and the border crossings would work. And so because it's not the Schengen zone in this area, there's certain things you need to show at the border, such as your passports, license, green card, etc. And they explained to us every single border and what they would need from us at the border crossing. In terms of the tolls, certain countries use different toll methods, such as a vignette or paying in cash or card at a toll booth. So it's just something to be careful of. Ultimately, they told us all about it so well that we didn't even have any questions and didn't even think of a question afterwards. But of course, they would be happy to help if you did have any. So really, ultimately, I can't thank them enough for all their help. And if I could, I'd give them 11 out of 10 stars. And I really recommend them if you want to go and start your sort of Balkans journey in Sofia. Alright, so now on to part 2 of the video. Don't mind the fact that it's dark. I just need to go to the bathroom, and so we'll just back after that. The car we chose was a 2019 model Opel Mokka X. So it's a 4x4 sort of small SUV, or like SUV cross. I don't know, whatever sort of category you want to put it under. It's perfect. It's not huge. It's sort of like a hatchback size, just on some stilts with the 4-wheel drive capability. But I guess that leads me into my first thing, which is getting a 4x4. That's really important in the Balkans, especially because there are a lot of potholes, there are a lot of unsealed roads, especially if you want to see sort of the best natural sights, which is probably half the reason why you're here. There's some really fantastic beauty and historical sites that, although would be fine to reach with a 2-wheel drive, it really is a bit a bit easier, a bit nicer when you have a four-wheel drive. You just feel like you have a bit more confidence in the car, and therefore it's just a bit less of a hassle, I guess. Beyond that, I've been sleeping in the car. It's not the most fantastic arrangement. It's also a bit of a grey area legally in some of the countries, but after reading a bit online, it's a thing of, like, you're not going to get fussed about it. Like, no one's going to pull you up for it if you just be discreet about it, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think there's anything in the law that says you can't do it. So that's worked out. I don't know if I'd suggest it in something this small, especially if you're a little bit on the taller side, but it worked out fine. And I've been taking breaks in between sleeping in the car to sleep in like just a bed at a very cheap like hotel or something like that. So yeah, the car's great. There's a few pet peeves with it, specifically like the fact that it looks like this, but that's just this is a personal preference. It's a very fine car in terms of what it does, and the 4x4 capability is probably the most important thing about it. So that's really all I have to say about the car. It's worked fine, and yeah, just get a 4x4. Make sure you do that. Thanks. Okay, I can't lie. I left out some things about the Opel, but they're just personal sort of annoyances I have with it. Look, I want to stress that it is a good car to drive. It does its job. The 4x4 works, and it's like a nice SUV. The seats are comfy, the wheel works, whatever, right? It does the things it needs to do as a car. But man, it's got some weird idiosyncrasies. Like, it's a 2019 model, it still blocks the car like this. And then it doesn't have a center console, like storage unit. It has one USB plug that can't even charge my iPhone. Like, it's a normal USB. I don't even know. It's just got some weird things to it. So if you can look past the fact that it's got some weird things on the inside, it drives like a good car. And so that's my honest take on it. That's my honest take.